Every country claims to have the strongest military, but if you really had to bet your life on just one of them, who would you choose? The one with the biggest nukes, the fastest jets, or the one nobody sees coming until it's too late? Firepower isn't everything. It's about who can actually win a war, not just start it. So, which nation is actually the most powerful on the planet? Some countries dominate the skies. Some are building robot armies. And some countries like North Korea are so well armed that you'd regret going to battle against them. War with North Korea wouldn't start with a warning. It'll start with a missile flying out of a cave that nobody even knew existed. North Korea's entire military is built like a cockroach-filled bunker, old, ugly, but impossible to kill. They've got 1.3 million active troops, 600,000 reservists, and nearly 6 million paramilitaries. Most of them underfed, undertrained, and probably still using flip phones. Their tanks, all 3,500 to 4,300 of them, are mostly Cold War relics. T-55, T-62s, and weird Frankenstein knockoffs with more paint than armor. Their submarine fleet is a mess of over 80 boats, most of them ancient, loud, and barely seaworthy. Their Air Force, MiG-29s, MiG-21s, Su-25s, over 850 aircraft. Small arms, you'll see AK clones everywhere. The Type 58, Type 68, Type 88, basically Soviet blueprints with a fresh coat of nationalism. But the real threat comes from what you can't see. There are thousands of underground facilities, missile bases, fake airfields, and artillery bunkers, some dug so deep they could survive an airstrike and still hit Seoul before the crater cools. North Korea has more than 200 ballistic missile launchers, including the Hwasong-18, a solid-fuel ICBM that could theoretically hit the US, assuming it doesn't fall apart mid-air. Their shorter-range KN-23 and KN-24 missiles are actually being used by Russia, and somehow, despite crippling sanctions and famine, they still spend an estimated 16% of their state budget on the military. But North Korea isn't the only country paranoid about being invaded, because Israel seems to have taken a page out of their playbook. Despite being smaller than some US states, Israel has one of the most advanced and battle-tested militaries on Earth. It's surrounded by enemies, has fought in multiple wars, and yet still manages to invent new missile systems to defend their borders. In 2024, Israel spent $46.5 billion on defense. That's nearly 9% of its entire GDP, making it one of the highest spending militaries in the world relative to size. The Israeli Air Force is the crown jewel. They operate 38 F-35 Adir stealth fighters, a custom-modified version of the F-35 made just for them. Alongside that are 174 F-16, 66 F-15, and support aircraft like modified Gulfstream G550 for surveillance and electronic warfare. They've also got around 48 AH-64 Apache helicopters, 53 Sea Stallions, and a variety of utility and naval helos to round it out. If there's an airspace nearby, Israel can probably dominate it. But Israel doesn't just fly, they intercept. Their missile defense network is like a three-layered security system, only instead of alarms, it has lasers and rockets. The Iron Dome stops short-range missiles. David's Sling handles the bigger ones. And Arrow 2 and 3 deal with ballistic missiles, sometimes in space. And now they're rolling out Iron Beam, a laser cannon that shoots down drones. On the ground, Israel has about 1,300 tanks, mostly the homegrown Merkava Mk4, one of the most unique tanks in the world, with a front-mounted engine and rear troop compartment. It's basically a tank that doubles as a taxi. Add in 352 self-propelled artillery units, the new Sigma 155mm autonomous howitzer, and 183 MLRS platforms, and you've got a land force that's compact but lethal. Their soldiers are equipped with micro-Tava rifles, Negev LMGs, and enough locally developed tech to make some NATO countries jealous. And then there's the part that no one talks about, the submarines. Israel has 5 Dolphin-class subs, with a 6th on the way, widely believed to carry nuclear-capable cruise missiles, even though the government officially says nothing. It's one of those, we're not saying we have them, but we're definitely not saying we don't situations. But despite Israel's massive support with weapons from America, countries like Turkey have taken a different approach. Turkey's military is one of the fastest growing forces in the world, and they're not just buying weapons, they're building their own. With over 355,000 active troops and another 379,000 in reserve, Turkey has one of NATO's largest militaries, and they're doing it on a budget, just $25 billion per year. So, where's all that power coming from? Drones. The Bayraktar TB2 changed everything. Cheap, reliable, and deadly. It turned Turkey into a drone superpower almost overnight. It's been used in Syria, Libya, and Ukraine, but they've since upgraded to newer models like the Akıncı, Aksungur, and the Kızılelma, a jet-powered stealth drone that looks like something out of a science fiction movie. And now, they've built the world's first drone aircraft carrier, the TCG Anadolu. At sea, Turkey commands 13 submarines, 16 frigates, and a fleet of fast attack ships, many armed with Atmarka anti-ship missiles made in Turkey. In the air, Turkey flies about 153 F-16s alongside older F-4 Phantom IIs, but they've been blocked from buying F-35s thanks to a certain Russian missile system they bought. Yet this hasn't stopped Turkey because instead they developed their own stealth fighter called the Khan. On the ground, their infantry uses the MPT-76, a modern NATO rifle replacing older German G3s with new gear and optics produced locally. Supporting their troops, Turkey fields around 2,200 tanks, including Leopard 2 A4s upgraded M60T Sabras. Older models like the M60A3 and their homegrown Altay tank just entered limited production. Turkey's artillery, massive. They operate over 1,000 self-propelled howitzers, including the T-155 Fırtına, plus around 1,700 towed guns and 400 multiple rocket launchers. Their Bora and Tayfun missiles can strike targets up to 561 kilometers away, giving Turkey serious regional reach, and those numbers are only going up. But unlike Turkey, which has focused their efforts on new, low-cost technology, Germany has stuck with the traditional route of incredible firepower. Germany doesn't brag, but maybe it should. After years of being called a hollow force, it's now the biggest military spender in Western Europe. In 2024, Germany dropped a jaw-dropping $88.5 billion on defense, making it the number 4 biggest spender in the world. And no, that money isn't just for shiny brochures. Germany's military, the Bundeswehr, is mid-transformation. Its army fields nearly 183,000 active personnel, and after years of neglect, it's finally buying the gear to match. They've ordered 105 new Leopard 2 A8 tanks, and already operate nearly 300 Leopard 2s across A5, A6, A7, and A7V variants. For artillery, they've got around 134 Panzerhaubitze, 2,000 self-propelled howitzers, 33 Mars, 2 MLR systems, and yes, zero-towed artillery. In the air, the Luftwaffe flies a mixed bag. Approximately 129 Eurofighter Typhoons, approximately 84 Tornadoes, and they've just signed off on 35 F-35As for NATO's nuclear sharing role. Germany also ordered 20 more Eurofighters, 60 brand new CH-47F Chinook heavy-lift helicopters, and Arrow 3 interceptors from Israel. And speaking of air defense, Germany is building out what might become Europe's Iron Dome, a layered missile shield made up of Iris SLMs, Patriot batteries, and the soon-to-be fielded Arrow 3. It's called the European Sky Shield Initiative, and yes, Germany is the one calling the shots. Down at sea, the German Navy isn't massive, but it is sneaky. Their 6 Type 212A submarines run on air-independent propulsion, making them whisper quiet underwater. And they've already ordered 6 more advanced 212CDs, co-developed with Norway, to keep that stealth edge. But while Germany's military is rebuilding itself into a European powerhouse, South Korea is what happens when you don't have the luxury of time. Sitting just 35 miles from one of the most unpredictable regimes on Earth, South Korea doesn't have the option of modernizing slowly. Its military is modern, fast, layered, and absolutely loaded for a worst-case scenario that could erupt with a single missile test from the north. With around 450,000 active personnel and over 3 million reserves from mandatory military service, South Korea has transformed into one of the most technologically advanced militaries on the planet, often being known as an artillery superpower. It fields over 3,270 self-propelled howitzers, including the globally exported K9 Thunder, and nearly 4,400 towed guns to suppress the North's hardened artillery sites. That's not overkill, it's doctrine. The missile arsenal is equally deadly. The Hyunmoo series, South Korea's family of short and medium-range ballistic missiles includes the Hyunmoo-2C, with 800-kilometer range, the Hyunmoo-4 with a warhead reportedly weighing 2 tons, and the recently unveiled Hyunmoo-5, which some estimate can hit targets 3,000 kilometers away with terrifying precision. And unlike their neighbors to the north, these missiles don't come with a UN sanctions package. Their tank fleet is nothing to scoff at either. The ROK Army rolls with around 2,236 main battle tanks, including the domestically made K1A2 and the ultra-modern K2 Black Panther, which is so impressive that European countries are now placing orders for it. Then there's the KSS-3 submarine program, a global first. South Korea is one of the only non-nuclear nations to deploy submarines capable of launching SLBMs, giving them what's essentially a conventional underwater deterrent. In the sky, the Republic of Korea Air Force is no slouch. They field 59 F-15K Slam Eagles, 118 upgraded KF-16s, and 38 F-35A stealth fighters, with more on the way. On top of that, they've got the KF-21 Borami, a domestically built 4.5 Gen fighter entering production. And yes, it looks suspiciously like an F-22. An F-35 had a baby. Support platforms include A330 tankers, E-737 Peace-Eye AWACS, and a vast helicopter fleet spanning Apache F-64s, UH-60 and over 150 KUH-1 Syrians. For a country roughly the size of Indiana, that's a lot of flying steel. South Korea's Navy operates around 21 submarines and a mix of KDX destroyers, Dokdo-class amphibious ships, and future Aegis-equipped cruisers. They may not dominate blue water like the US Navy, but they absolutely control the waters around their peninsula. Yet only 200 kilometers away is Japan, whose military might just have a one-up on South Korea. No, we're not talking anime and vending machines. We're talking submarines that move undetectable like ghosts, missiles that fly Mach 3, and carriers quietly making a comeback for the first time since that part of the 1940s. Japan might seem nice, but their military is quietly terrifying. In 2024, Japan spent around $55.3 billion on their military. Why the ramp up? Well, when your neighbors include China, North Korea, and Russia, you don't exactly sleep easy. Japan's military, officially called the Japan Self-Defense Forces, has about 247,000 active troops. But what they lack in manpower compared to some other nations, they make up for with world-class tech. Japan flies around 155 F-15Js, 62 F-2As, 23 F-2Bs, and about 39 F-35s, in service with over 100 more on order, making them one of the largest F-35 buyers on Earth. They're also fitting those with SM cruise missiles and their own ASM-3A, a Mach 3 plus anti-ship missile, because if you're going to defend your islands, do it at supersonic speed. On the water, Japan has 23 submarines, including the Taige class, the first fleet in the world to use lithium-ion batteries. That means no noisy diesel, faster speed underwater, and a longer endurance. They also have 8 Aegis destroyers, armed with SM-3 missiles for intercepting ballistic threats, and 2 massive carriers, the Izumo and Kaga, being converted to launch F-35Bs. On the ground, they've got over 500 tanks, mostly Type 10s and Type 90s, and a mix of Type 99s and Type 19 artillery, plus M270 MLRS systems. Their missile forces are also expanding rapidly, with 400 US Tomahawks on order, extended-range Type 12 SSMs, and the Glide Phase Interceptor project, with the US to stop hypersonics. So, while Japan rarely waves its military around like a flag, they're quietly building a force that's fast, precise, and packed with tech. But back in Europe, France has a different game plan. If France had a military motto, it might just be elegance with firepower. Because while they're not the biggest, they're definitely one of the most refined. You don't build a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier just to be subtle, and France didn't. The Charles de Gaulle is the only carrier of its kind outside the US. But this isn't just for show. France is a nuclear power with global reach. It has a dual-legged nuclear deterrent, 4 Triumphant-class submarines packing M51 ballistic missiles, and strike-ready Rafale jets armed with supersonic ASEA nukes. France spent around $64.7 billion on defense in 2024. With a professional force of around 201,000 active troops, they punch above their weight, thanks to cutting-edge kit and serious expeditionary chops. Land power. Soldiers have ditched the old farmers and gone full HK-416F, lightweight, modular, and very NATO-friendly. They've also adopted Glock 17s, SCAR Hs for marksmen, and modern anti-tank and man-pad systems. Supporting the troops on the ground, they've got 225 Leclerc tanks, about 79 Caesar self-propelled howitzers, and 9 old but gold M270 multiple rocket launchers. Sure, rocket artillery is a known gap, but France is already testing a next-gen Foudre system to fill it. Air power, very French. The Rafale is sleek, deadly, and all theirs. Around 97 are in Air Force service, plus 41 Rafale M for the Navy. They've also got Mirage 2000s hanging on, but they're slowly being retired. France has 12 A330 MRTT tankers, E3FA walks for early warning, and a growing fleet of A400M Atlas and C-130 transports to get boots anywhere on the globe. Sea power? The French Navy includes 6 attack submarines, a mix of newer Barracuda-class and older Rubis-class boats, and a solid fleet of FREMM frigates capable of launching AN cruise missiles with ranges between 1,000 to 1,400 kilometers. What is France's biggest secret? The legendary Foreign Legion, a pro-force made up of soldiers from around the world. But France isn't the only country to have an ace up their sleeve, because 34 kilometers away, the United Kingdom's military is even more equipped for war. The UK spends about $74 billion annually on its military, and all that money funds a truly global army. 147,000 plus active personnel operate everything from F-35B stealth jets launched off the 65,000-ton Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carriers to Astute-class submarines quietly prowling with Tomahawk missiles. And when it comes to nuclear deterrence, the UK doesn't mess around. It's been running an unbroken at-sea nuclear patrol since 1969, thanks to its 4 Vanguard-class SSBNs, all armed with Trident 2D5 SLBMs. On the ground, the UK is in a transitional phase. It's retiring old Challenger 2 tanks and upgrading 148 of them to Challenger 3, while rebuilding its artillery game after donating its AS-90s to Ukraine. For now, it's using 14 Archer howitzers and is rapidly expanding its M270 MLRS fleet with 61 launchers. The British Army is also fielding the L118 light gun in large numbers, over 100 still in service. In the skies, 113 Typhoon FGR-4s and 31 to 37 F-35Bs form the backbone of its fast jet force. The E-7 Wedgetail, P-8 Poseidon, and RC-135 Rivet Joint provide some of NATO's best reconnaissance and early warning capability. A 330 Voyager tankers and A400M Atlas transports give serious global reach. Down below, the Royal Navy has 5 Astute-class attack submarines in service, and it's modernizing its undersea arsenal. Tomahawk cruise missiles give the sub serious bite, while the Dreadnought class is poised to replace the current nuclear boats in the early 2030s. Sure, the UK's army is smaller than it once was, but when you combine carrier strike, stealth fighters, elite submarines, and one of the most combat-integrated militaries in NATO, the UK still punches way above its weight. But did you know that one of their former colonies now has a stronger military than they do? India doesn't just field one of the world's biggest militaries. It fields one of the most overlooked and overloaded. With 1.4 million active troops, 2 aircraft carriers, and a nuclear arsenal strapped to submarines, missiles, and aircraft. India's message is clear. It's not just here to defend its borders, it's building for power projection. Spending around $86.1 billion a year, India is the 5th largest military spender globally, and it's pumping more of that budget into domestic gear than ever before. That means locally built tanks, artillery, fighter jets, even rifles. Call it Make India Great Again. On the ground, India operates a tank fleet of approximately 3,740 main battle tanks, with T-72 Ajaya still making up over 2,000 of them, followed by 1,000 to 1,300 T-90 Bhishma units, and the Arjun Mark I and Mark 1A slowly rolling in. Artillery is massive. Over 9,700 guns, including 100 K9 Vajra SPHs, 145 M777 howitzers, 114 Dhanush units, and a fresh order of 307 ATAGS 155mm beasts. Rocket artillery. They've got Pinaka MBRLs in at least 8 full regiments and counting. But India's real wildcard is its missile arsenal. From short-range Prithvi-2 to the Agni-V ICBM capable of hitting targets over 5,000 kilometers away, the Strategic Forces Command has depth and growing reach. The Agni-P, BrahMos cruise missiles, and K-15, K-4 SLBMs launched from nuclear submarines round out a pretty serious nuclear triad. Speaking of submarines, India has 2 operational SSBNs, INS Arihant and INS Aragat, 6 Scorpène-class diesel boats, and several older Kilo and Type 209 class subs still running patrols. The fleet's still small compared to China's, but it's growing. On top of that, India's got 2 aircraft carriers, INS Vikramaditya and the newer INS Vikrant. Soon they'll get a fresh batch of 26 Rafale M carrier-based fighters to upgrade the air wing. In the skies, the Indian Air Force isn't short on options. It flies about 266 Su-30 MKY multi-role fighters, 36 Rafales, approximately 55 Mirage 2000s, 60-plus MiG-29s, and is steadily replacing old MiG-21s with the Tejas Mk1A with 170 on order. They also operate 11 C-17, C-130Js, and IL-76s, plus an impressive helo fleet, including 22 AH-64Es, the indigenous LCH Prachant, and loads of Mi-17s and ALH Druvs. But if India is the rising giant preparing for tomorrow, Russia is the old empire trying to survive today. Despite digging into Cold War stockpiles like they are family heirlooms, Russia still commands one of the most dangerous arsenals on Earth. With a military budget of roughly $149 billion in 2024, the Kremlin is burning cash like a bonfire of old Soviet maps. Yet somehow, that money still fuels the 3rd largest military spender on the planet. How? Simple. They never stopped building Soviet-style quantities, just with a little modern spin. Let's start with their nuclear arsenal. Russia holds around 5,580 total nuclear warheads, with approximately 1,710 actively deployed. On land, they've got around 330 ICBMs, including road-mobile Yars missiles, silo-based Topol-M, the new Sarmat Satan II, and the hypersonic Avangard glide vehicle. At sea, they operate approximately 12 SSBNs, and in the air, 2-160s and Tu-95s fly cruise missile patrols, armed with KH-101 or KH-102 nukes. But the nuclear threat is only part of the package. Russia also maintains one of the largest tank fleets in the world, about 5,750 tanks. Granted, some of them are glorified museum exhibits like the T-62 and T-55, which they've brought out of retirement thanks to Ukraine. But newer models like the T-90M and T-72B3 are still being cranked out, albeit slower than losses come in. Artillery is where Russia really flexes. They operate over 5,000 self-propelled guns, 8,500 towed howitzers, and more than 3,000 MLRS units. From the 2 S-19 Emister to the 2 S-7 Malka to thermobaric monsters like the TOS-1A, Russia's artillery doctrine is simple. Drown everything in explosives until it stops moving. In the air, things are mixed. The Russian Air Force still flies around 1,600 plus combat aircraft, including Su-30s, Su-35s, Su-34s strike bombers, and about 24 5th-gen Su-57 Felons, which they insist are stealthy. Let's just say radar operators aren't losing sleep. They also fly 128 MiG-31s, some armed with the Kinjal air-launched ballistic missile, and their strategic bomber fleet includes Tu-95s, Tu-22s, and the newer Tu-160Ms. Helicopters? Think big. The VKS and Army Aviation fly 135 K-52s, 94 Mi-28s, and over 770 Mi-8/17 utility choppers. And thanks to their ongoing campaign in Ukraine, they've gotten real-time experience testing new tactics, from glide bombs to loitering munitions like Lancets to jamming heavy drone swarms. But speaking of drones, Russia is arguably a world leader in this field thanks to the war in Ukraine. And let's not forget their air defense, one of the most layered in the world. The S-300, S-350, S-400, Tor and Pantsir systems create a web that's deadly until it isn't. As Ukraine has shown, the myth of impenetrability doesn't always hold up under drones and HIMARS. But just like Russia, China is another military power flexing their strength, but the scariest part? We barely know what they're truly capable of. The People's Liberation Army is like a military on fast forward. It's the largest navy on Earth by hull count, has more ground troops than the population of some countries, and cranks out warships, tanks, and missiles like it's running on cheat codes. China spends around $249 billion officially, or closer to $314 billion by international estimates, making it the second largest military spender in the world, behind only the US. That money feeds a force of around 2 million active troops, including nearly 1 million in the ground forces alone. On land, China fields a tank fleet of around 6,800 units, with Type 99s at the top, Type 96s as the workhorse, and the Type 15 light tank built specifically for mountainous warfare. Its artillery game is monstrous. Around 3,490 self-propelled guns, 1,000 towed, and 2,750 multiple rocket launchers, including PHL-16 systems that can hit targets over 300 kilometers away. In the skies, China fields over 3,300 aircraft, with roughly 2,300 to 2,400 combat aircraft. Their air force is now dominated by J-10Cs, J-16s, and the stealthy J-20, which is growing in number every year, currently around 195 and counting. China's also one of the few nations actively testing naval stealth fighters, the J-35, for its upcoming carrier, the Fujian, which features electromagnetic catapults. Speaking of which, that's 3 aircraft carriers, the Liaoning, Shandong, and the Fujian, the last being a game-changer with EMALS launch tech, the same kind the US uses. On top of that, they operate at least 6 nuclear ballistic missile submarines, 6 attack subs, and over 48 diesel-electric subs, many capable of firing JL-2 and JL-3 submarine-launched ballistic missiles. But the crown jewel, the PLA rocket force, the most stacked missile arsenal on the planet. It holds over 300 short-range ballistic missile launchers, approximately 300 medium-range, 250 intermediate range, and now approximately 550 intercontinental ballistic missile launchers, including DF-41s and 300-plus brand-new silos. China also fields hypersonic glide vehicles like the DF-17 and air-launched ballistic missiles on the H-6N bomber. Yet despite all of this, there is still one nation on Earth which could actually beat China, and that is the Freedom Factory, aka the United States. The US spends more on its military than China, Russia, India, and the entire EU combined, around $997 billion in 2024. That's a number so big, you could fund NASA for a century, or buy everyone on Earth a Nintendo Switch. But the US isn't buying toys, it's buying global reach. 1.27 million active personnel across 800-plus overseas bases, backed by 445,000 in reserve and another 330,000 in the National Guard. You know how most countries defend their own borders? The US defends everyone's, sometimes without being asked. Let's start with the Navy. It's the most powerful on Earth, by a nautical mile. 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, each launching F-35s, F-A-18, and Growlers like a mobile airbase. 9 amphibious assault ships that act like mini carriers. 14 Ohio-class SSBNs with Trident 2D5 SLBMs. Over 50 attack subs that silently patrol the oceans, while Russian sailors bang wrenches on aging diesel engines. They also operate 91 destroyers, including Arleigh Burke-class ships, with Tomahawks, SM-6s, and lasers in testing. Because of course the US is trying to shoot missiles down with light beams like it's the Death Star. Air power, 183 F-22 Raptors, the world's only fully operational 5th-gen air superiority fighter. Over 330 F-35s, with thousands more in the pipeline. 1,200-plus F-16s, 218 F-15EXs, 218 A-10s, and 175 B-52s still flying after 60 years because they refuse to die. Add in 20 stealth B-2s, 45 B-1Bs, and the new B-21 Raider, the stealth bomber that looks like an alien spaceship, and was built so secretly it probably has its own Area 51. Support aircraft, 400 plus KC-135s, 88 KC-46s, and 59 KC-10s keep jets in the air. 220 C-17s, 120 C-130Js, 32 C-5Ms, and dozens of CV-22 Ospreys move troops across the world faster than most airlines. And that's not counting the drones. The MQ-9 Reaper can orbit for 27 hours with Hellfires on both wings. The RQ-4 Global Hawk watches from the stratosphere. And loitering munitions, AI-enabled drone swarms and hypersonic tests are already underway. The Army? Approximately 1,400 active Abrams tanks with 8,800 in storage. Approximately 1,000 M109A7 Paladin SPHs, approximately 400 HIMARS, and approximately 850 M777 towed guns. Stryker brigades, Bradleys, JLTVs, Apache gunships, Black Hawks, Chinooks, Grey Eagles. It's like a post-apocalyptic wish list. Fully funded. Rifle-wise, they're ditching the classic M4 for the XM7 rifle and XM250 LMG, chambered in 6.8mm and built to pierce Chinese body armor before it even ships from Alibaba. And then there's the nuclear triad. 400 Minuteman III sitting in underground silos across the Midwest, upgraded and soon replaced by the Sentinel ICBM. Air-launched cruise missiles on bombers, and the Navy's SLBM patrols, which, unlike Russia's, actually work consistently. But speaking of China and Russia can barely keep its jets from falling off runways and its tanks from bursting into flames in Ukraine. China's building warships like it's printing them, but most of them don't even leave port. And the J-20 still hasn't fought a war, or flown with its mouth closed. The US, meanwhile, has been in constant combat for 30 years. From Iraq to Afghanistan to Syria, it's the only military on Earth that has tested every piece of gear in real-world combat, not just parades.